the fourth industrial revolution, you keep on emphasizing. What about capacity building, Professor Schwab, during this revolution in order to solve the problem of discontent?
It's key because the fourth industrial revolution will require new skills. And the best preparation for the future is actually to prepare for those new skills and to make sure that the present workforce is re-skilled and upskilled. This will be the big challenge for governments, and it also has a great impact on the educational system, because educational systems are very traditional. And we have to think completely in terms of the new capabilities we need. For example, coding, just to take one example.
Is it already too little too late to change?
No, it's a process which has to be accelerated, certainly, but it's never too late. So also, let's not forget, so many opportunities which the fourth industrial revolution offers to us.
But who should play a major role? Is it going to be the government? Is it going to be business? Is it going to be the civil society, educational circles, or international foundations like World Economic Forum?
You know, we are a big believer, and that's actually the base for the existence of the World Economic Forum, believer that the big challenges in the world cannot be solved by governments alone, or by business alone, or by civil society alone. We need collaborative platforms, and the forum is such a collaborative platform.
We've seen some proposals for solutions, and there are diversity of them. For example, coming from the emerging economies, you got China proposing Belt and Road Initiative, trying to promote connectivity. You were there, Professor Schwab,
yes, yeah,
at the Belt and Road Forum earlier this year. Do you think these proposals could eventually help us to find the ultimate solutions?
It's a very important initiative, and I have underlined it in my speech at the opening. What we have to realize is that globalization in its old form has come to an end, and actually we still, as President Xi mentioned in Davos, we still need to exercise global responsibility, we still need globalization, but maybe globalization in a different form. First, we have to make globalization more inclusive, and second, globalization today is not one homogeneous structure. It's much more like a network, and the network has hubs, and the One Belt, One Road initiative is such an important hub, and such hubs on a more regional levels have to cooperate globally, but they provide the best entry card into the future, because they foster the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, they foster the digital infrastructure, they are the preconditions for cooperation. So it's a new form of global cooperation, a new form which I call platform-based, where everybody joins because there's a win-win situation.
Which is more important, do you think, Professor Schwab, during this process? Is it going to be debates, have very clear goals and processes before we start? Or is it more important that we take actions and with a can-do spirit? To you, which is more important?
I think it's not an alternative. The two are intertwined. You need, particularly if you work in the context of different countries, different cultures, different economic systems, you need to understand all your partners. So dialogue is very important in order to define common objectives. But once you know about the common objectives, then action becomes essential. So it's a combined process of having a dialogue, but also a dialogue which is action-oriented.
Are we successfully having both the world right now?
No, because we have certain countries which unfortunately do not support clearly the notion of global cooperation. I feel that if you want to establish a peaceful, prosperous, sustainable world in the long run, we have to be able to solve also short-term differences. So at the moment, I think what we have to do is to find small practical steps, such as the One Belt, One Road initiative, in order to fill the gap.
You and the World Economic Forum thrived over the decades, and you see the ups and downs of our societal debates in the world. What do you think is the general spirit that would really let us get there?
Let's not forget, we have a tendency to look at problems, at issues, but we can look back at so many achievements. Look at China, how China has developed since I came first here in 1979. Tremendous difference. People are living in much better conditions today. So I wouldn't be pessimistic, to the contrary, I'm optimistic.
You sound very optimistic.
But it needs personalities who actually, of course, have the necessary knowledge. The world is very complex, so you have to be a professional, but people who have also a clear vision going ahead, people who have the passion to engage full-heartedly, and people who can translate ideas into action.
It's amazing how you would manage to upgrade the intellectual level of the World Economic Forum with the changes of the world. Probably some of the things you've done, you've thought about, could also be things that can share with leadership around the world about exactly what can be done now.
I'm very proud, of course, of what we have achieved. I think we were at the origin of many notions which are very important today, like social responsibility, like public-private cooperation, the fourth industrial revolution. What it needs today is an attitude which incorporates change as a new normal. That's, I think, very important.
Enormous amount of challenging face European continent. Is Europe still going to be a strong base for a thought hub like the World Economic Forum?
Yes. No, yes, definitely it will be. Again, the positive side, let's not forget, for the first time since many years, Europe moves out of a stagnation and will achieve an economic growth of GDP of about 2%, which is quite high for a highly developed region and country. Of course, there's Brexit, but on the other hand, we have seen in the recent elections that the populist movements will not come into power. We will see.
Well, it's mixed. It's
yeah,
mixed.
but in principle, if you take the key countries, Germany and France, they will be driven by Chancellor Merkel and the newly elected French President Macron. And I think this will give a new impetus, a new energy to the European idea. So we will see, in my opinion, a much stronger Europe, maybe without the United Kingdom. Maybe the United Kingdom will come back one day, but I'm a big believer in Europe's future.
Is the future still lies in the relationship across the Atlantic or now across the Pacific?
Chancellor Merkel has said Europe has to become more self-confident and to take its destiny into its own hands. This means a more independent, a more forceful Europe, which will cultivate good relations across the transatlantic, but as we have seen, it will also be a Europe with very strong ties to Asia and particularly to China.
We're at a time of great change. You pointed it out many times, Professor Schwab. But the question is, are we going to learn during this learning curve efficiently and quick enough in order to adjust?
That's my biggest concern, that in the future we have a two-tier society. those who embrace the future, who welcome change, who work hard to exploit the opportunities of change. And then you have the other half, or the other part of the population, maybe it's even a majority, which fears change, which of course has all the reasons to fear change, because the jobs may be threatened. I think this part of the population has played a major role already in the Brexit vote. It has played a role in the American elections. So it is a task of the leaders who really recognize what's happening to make sure that we do not have a gap between the winners and the losers, but we have a new type of social contract which takes care of those who are losing out in this modern world.
But then it takes leadership with great qualities.
That's
What
right.
are some of the adjectives you would describe for the best leadership qualities these days that we urgently need?
I would say a forward-looking vision. I would say serving the people. We have to be responsive. We never should forget that we have to serve the people who have entrusted us with leadership. So we have an obligation to be always committed to take also into account the interest of those people. So it's vision, it's responsiveness, and finally it's courage, because we don't know exactly how the future will unfold. So you have to take decisions under uncertainty. But if you know you serve the people, I think even if you make from time to time a mistake, I think it's the right path at the end, serving the people, serving the community.
But then what would help them to make those decisions would be extremely important, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's important for leaders always to have the ear on the ground. For example, for the World Economic Forum, I travel half of my time to talk to universities, to talk to politicians. I'm now on my tour through Asia. I will see the prime ministers of the 3 most important Asian countries.
That's right.
But not only to listen to them. For me, it's very important to listen to the young generation. We have, the World Economic Forum has its own youth organization. So, for example, on the weekend I was in Hong Kong, and I had a 2-hour discussion with the young people, just to feel what the young generation thinks and what the young generation expects from the future.
And of course, here you have a lot of young global leaders
Exactly.
and global shapers at the World Economic Forum, the rising generation, as you say, Professor.
It's very important.
I do want to ask you, Professor Schwab, Winter Davos earlier this year, enormous challenge facing the world. Chinese President Xi Jinping was there talking about solutions coming from emerging economies. Now we are in summer. More complicated world, but seems some proposals have already put out there. I just wonder, from now on until next year, in the winter, we meet again, Professor Schwab.
Yeah.
Are we going to be better?
You see, first, the speech of President Xi in Davos was historical. It showed us that the world has changed from a unipolar to a multipolar system. And when we approach the future, there may be different opinions about the actions to be taken. So global dialogue, what is the purpose of the forum, of the World Economic Forum, is absolutely essential and will be more essential in the future. There are sometimes people who say it's just a conference, but actually you need the dialogue, because before you formulate action, you have to get a feeling for the ecosystem, how everything is interrelated. There are no simple answers to very complicated questions. So if we progress, people expect always fast solutions and for very complicated issues. This is not possible. It's an ongoing working process. And the World Economic Forum at the moment has about 50, more than 50 task forces working on very specific issues. I give you a small thing. We worked together with UN 2 weeks ago when there was the UN meeting on how to save the oceans. The World Economic Forum brought together a coalition to develop principles how to have a much more sustained, a much more responsible approach for tuna fishing, because tuna fishing is the most important part. So we brought together 50 different actors with very concrete solutions. But in the media, there were, I follow the media of course, there were very few items. So the world is not driven forward by big, grand decisions. The world is driven forward by small action, but actions which are integrated into an overall system.
Here people listen, here people connect.
Yeah.
And only as a result of all of those and many efforts more can things be worked out, I guess.
This annual meeting of the new champions is absolutely unique because usually you have, let's say, leaders coming together who have great experience, but who do not always think in terms of this new world which is unfolding. Here you have really the new champions, those who are at the frontiers. Look at artificial intelligence, look at robotizations.
Biotechnology, neuroscience.
I mean, everything. And it will have such an impact on the world, not just on business and business models. It will change us, it will change politics, it will change society. So it's very important that we get a feeling for the latest development and how they may impact society. And that's what we are doing here. And by the way, what we are doing here is not just a conference. It's integrated, as I said before, in working processes of the World Economic Forum. So everything which is shown here is well prepared, but will be followed up also afterwards.
We are looking forward to it. All of these that you mentioned, Professor Schwab.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.